Okay, so I'm going to go over one of the practice worksheets on motion maps, position versus time, and velocity versus time. So on this one right here, we're asked to convert a position versus time graph into a motion map and into a velocity versus time graph. So I'm going to start off with my motion map. Whenever I draw my motion map, I just need to label my distances. So my distances in this case are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 meters. So I'm going to label, here's 0 meters, 1, 2, 3, and 4 meters. The object, now all I do is I pinpoint my dots here. So it starts off at 0, so I put a dot at 0. There's 1 at 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, and 4 and 4. So all I do is I just find the coordinate where that line goes through. So this is 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, and 4 and 4. So each dot, here's my dot that goes at 1, my second dot goes at 2, my third at 3, and my fourth at 0. And so here is my motion map. It also asks me to then convert it into a velocity versus time graph. To find the velocity of this line, I just take a look at the major points of this. So the starting point is a major point, and the end point. There is no change of motion throughout the entire graph, so I simply take the distance divided by the time. So the distance is 4 meters, because I know that from this point to this point it goes up 4 meters, and the time is 4 seconds, because from here to here it goes 4 seconds. So 4 meters divided by 4 seconds gives me a velocity of 1 meter per second. So I'm going to start my line on this 1 meter per second, and I just have to figure out how many seconds does it go for. It goes for 4 seconds. So I'm going to go from 0 all the way across to 4. And there's my velocity time graph. Let's go to the next problem. The next problem, I notice that there is a change in velocity here. So first I'm going to start off with my motion map. On my motion map, I notice that it starts with 0, and once again it goes to 4 meters. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. So I'm going to draw out a motion map with 4 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. I notice that I start at 0, so I'm going to put a dot at 0 meters. And now I just figure out where I need to put my next dots. Well, at 1 second, my first dot, it needs to go at the 2 meter mark. So I put my first dot at the 2 meter mark. My second dot goes in between the 2 and the 3 meter. My third second dot goes on the 3. And the fourth goes in between the 3 and the 4. So I'm going to draw this out. So as you can see from this motion map, it started out fast and then it suddenly slowed down. So now let's figure out what that looks like for velocity. So I start off my velocity. I go to the major points that are on the position versus time graph. I got my starting point, the change right here, and my end point. Well, my starting point, the distance that it travels from this point to this point is 2 meters. So 2 meters. The time that it takes is 1 second. So 2 meters divided by 1 second. 2 meters divided by 1 second is 2 meters per second. So I'm going to go up to my 2 meter per second line. I know that's where my first line is going to go, is at 2 meters per second. I just have to figure out how long that lasts. It will last for 1 second, from 0 to 1. So from 0 to 1, I put in a 2 meter per second line. Now I go to my next line segment. It goes from 2 meters up to 3.5 meters. So it goes 1.5 meters. So my second segment is 1.5 meters. The time that it takes to travel that 1.5 meters is 1, 2, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. So I got 1.5 meters divided by 3 seconds. Now I'm sitting there wondering, man, how do I divide that out? Well, 3 goes into 15 5 times, and I just put the decimal in there now. It's 1 decimal point, so 3 into 15, it goes in 5 times, and then I just add my 1 decimal point. So my velocity is 0.5 meters per second squared. So I find it here on the graph. 0.5 is going to be right around here, so it's going to start right here. And I just got to figure out how long that goes for. Well, it lasts, if you notice on the graph, it lasts for 3 seconds. It goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So that's a total of 3 seconds. So now I'll draw out my velocity from 1 to 3 seconds at a velocity of 0.5 meters per second squared. I'm at 0.5 meters per second. All right, let's go to our next one. On our next one, we have once again, we have our position versus time graph. Now I need to convert this into my motion map. I'm going to put this one on the bottom because I have a little bit more room. I notice that there's a total of 4 meters that occur here. So my motion map is going to cover 4 meters. So here's 0 meters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now I have to put in my dots. Now my first dot doesn't start at 0, 0. It actually starts at 0, 2. So my very first dot, it's at the 2 meter mark. My second dot, which is the 1 second, so here's 0 seconds, I always put 0 seconds first. My next dot's the 1 second. It's at 3 meters. So I put a dot at 3 meters. My second is at 4 meters. So here's my second at 4 meters. So I put it right there. And now from there it goes down. My third second is at the 2 meter mark. So my third second's coming back this opposite direction. And it's going to be at my 2 meter mark. And then my fourth second is at the 0 meter mark. So on this motion map, I show it going forward, forward. Well, this dot, I realized after I put it on there, I'm like, oh man, wait a second, I can't go back over those lines. So I'm just going to put an X through that, put it right here at the 4, and show it going back now. I had to drop that dot because there was no stop in motion, but the direction did change. So since the direction changed, I needed to drop that dot and point it going the other direction. Now I have to figure out what is my velocities for each line segment. So I have the first line segment right here, and my second line segment, which goes from here to here. So my first line segment, I notice that I go up 2 meters, and it takes 2 seconds. So I go up 2 meters, and it takes 2 seconds. So 2 meters divided by 2 seconds gives me a velocity of 1 meter per second. So over here, I'm going to start on my 1 meter per second, and it goes from the 0 second to the 1 second to the 2 second. So I draw a straight line from my 0 to my 1 to my 2 seconds, just a straight line across at the 1 meter per second mark. The next line goes from 4 meters to 0 meters. So that's a negative 4 meters. So I've got negative 4 meters. And it takes it from this 2 seconds to 3 to 4. So that's a 2-second time frame. So it goes negative 4 meters in 2 seconds. Well, 4 divided by 2 gives me a negative 2. Well, negative 4 divided by 2 gives me negative 2. So my next velocity is going to be negative 2 meters per second. I know I'm going to start here. and it goes from the second to the fourth second. So I finished drawing out that line segment. And that's it. So I hope that helped you and get you a little bit closer in on this so that if you need to pause this and make sure that you've got all your answers correct, you may. All right.